Yo, what's up? This is Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. My co-host Jeremy Scipio is out there hitting the stage tonight, but I have a very special guest, very talented musician by the name of No No slash Luke, a very serious musician. What's happening with you?
How you doing, man? Thanks for having me, Greg.
All good, all good.
Yeah.
Um, so with that being said, what city are you from?
Born and raised Los Angeles.
Okay.
Yeah, home turf.
Nice. When was the first time you heard hip hop?
So I grew up skateboarding. I got into skateboarding like beginning of middle school. It's kind of like it ran my life. I couldn't tell you the first hip hop song that I heard, but I could tell you the first one that was really important to me. Um, and it was No Shame in My Game by Gangstar. Off the Daily Operation record. This dude Eric Costin skated to it in 4-on-1 when I was like in sixth grade, and I like immediately had to go find the tape. And we're still talking cassettes because I'm 40, so we're talking cassettes. And it's like went to warehouse in Culver City, didn't have. It was like impossible to find. Like I didn't know how to find it. And it's funny because J. Rue the Damage is actually on that record too, on that song particularly. So I was like introduced to both Guru, Premier, and J. Rue the Damage all at one time. Like I had to seek out everything they were doing, and to this day, 30 years later, Gangstar still remains, top 10 all time for me.
Yeah, man. I was a fan of Gangstar and I was a fan of Guru in his Jazzmatazz projects and whatnot. And it
Yeah.
was I was actually able to see Guru perform at the House of Blues before that got torn down in Hollywood
Mm.
with he had Roy Ayers
Oh, everybody loves.
and Donald Byrd with him.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That's like how this is like the journey to jazz for me was hip hop, and I didn't know it at the time, but like Jazzmatazz Volume 1 and 2, listening to Donald Byrd play trumpet was the first time I sort of had jazz in my ears. Um, and hip hop became the sort of catalyst for me to get into jazz, to study jazz, to learn jazz over time. And it's crazy how much, I mean, I could name you like 10 of my favorite songs that are all sampled from, Tribe doing Jack Wilkins or all these things, like hip hop what 100% introduced me to jazz, and Guru specifically.
You know, so I had so I played trumpet from seventh grade to ninth grade in high school. That was like the closest I got to it. I
Yeah.
messed around with turntables, DJ'd from maybe 86, 87 ish, toying around to having a situation where because of who I knew, I got tossed around a couple small clubs, got to play some opening sets and stuff like that or whatever. But maybe about maybe I might have been a senior in high school, or it might have been the year after I graduated. But my father wanted to take me. He wanted me to go with him to see Freddie Hubbard
Oh,
um,
yeah.
in Long Beach, and it was my first experience seeing, I guess, live jazz, a great, Freddie Hubbard, Red Clay, Tribe Called Quest, all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't have been older than, maybe I was 21. Maybe I was 21, but I know I couldn't have been older than 21. But um, my father and I, we go into the show, and Freddie Hubbard, he couldn't hit notes,
Oh,
and he just ended up saying like, "Man, fuck this shit." And I remember feeling so crazy, and I didn't know it at the time, but what I as I grew into a younger man and then an older man where I am right now, I think back on it now, and it reminds me of a boxer that's in no shape to be in the ring, and like,
Uh-huh.
why would somebody put, even if it's for exhibition, like, why
Yeah.
would somebody put this guy in the ring?
Yeah.
And then I said to myself, I'm like, dang, you know what? And this is the 21-year-old me, like bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, star-eyed,
Yeah.
I was just really getting into Jimi Hendrix heavy, felt the world was a more wonderful place than not a wonderful place, whatever.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, I said, man, he really walked away and he was frustrated. And it was in a small club. So there probably was about maybe I'd say maybe 50 people. Like it wasn't huge at all. It was like some very small room. But the interesting thing to me was me watching all the people see him try to play and then get frustrated that he couldn't play and then just kind of like walk away and walk off, but everybody understood.
Right.
Like no one was coming down on him hard or anything like that, or just whatever. And it's so funny that we're having this conversation because I think that was one of my moments in life where I just really saw how cold the world is.
Right. That's interesting. Was he just too old by that point, or was he already ailing?
He wasn't ailing.
Yeah.
He just didn't have his lip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting thing to age out of your passion. I like just heard of Bob Dylan getting asked on 60, like it's from the 80s or the 90s, but Bob Dylan, the interviewer on 60 Minutes asks him like, like how did you write those songs? And he's like, like I didn't. There was like a magic there. And they're like, could you do it now? He's like, no. Like he was old enough and like aware enough to be like, I don't have it anymore. But it's like I can do other things now and I still love playing music, but I can't do that. It's an interesting place to get to, especially now that I'm like in my 40s. It's an interesting thing to start realizing that like time is fleeting and it's fast, man. It goes fast. And so you really got to focus on things you do love. It's become ever apparent to me that I need to spend a lot more time doing things I love and than than like screwing off, like I make it a point not to spend too much time on the phone or like doing these things, I'm like, oh, you could be practicing. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to take it to like the Mamba mentality mode. Like I still enjoy my life and want to see friends and visit and talk shit, with my people. But like, it's really important to me. The older I get, the more I realize that the world is a cold place. That the only thing that I want to do is meaningful things with my friends. And that's music for me. So, but it's a wild concept to age out of something you love.
I'm a very passionate person. Like I can do some things that I'm not passionate about, like I'm passionate about them because
Sure.
I just have a my I'm just a pat like I feel that you either you show up or you don't show up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like even when you don't want to show up, you need to show up if that's how you are. Like it's strange to me how people can turn it on and turn it off. But I find myself sometimes I'll say like, man, I've just had an accomplishment, or I want to go out and kind of not necessarily celebrate, but just do something. And then I'll find myself if I'm out or whatever and I'm having a drink, and then I'm like, man, I don't need to be here right now. I'm like, I don't need to be here right now. Like,
Yeah.
man, I need to be doing what I know is gonna further me right now. And not in an obsessed way, but I'm just kind of like when I'm passionate, I'm just like, man, I'm sitting here, I'm having a drink, I'm listening to some music, um, I'm full off of the environment. Like I probably was hungry before I came. I'm full off the environment, whatever. And I'm like, man, it's time. So I'm the kind of cat, I'll go somewhere and I'll stay like 15 minutes and be cool with it. Like
Yeah.
I literally can be cool with having 15 minutes of some live music, some interaction, some whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? Time to bounce. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, the scope of things that is important gets smaller and smaller. I feel like as days go by for me, like it has to be pretty important for me to like, it has to be something like that I really need to know I need to experience front to back, like that I'm gonna give up a whole night, like Herbie Hancock at the Hollywood Bowl recently. I'm like, I'm
Oh,
just the whole
that's
night.
yeah.
I'm not
That's
doing, like I'm 100% here. I'm not thinking about anything else. But yeah, then your friend's birthday's like, hey, we're all getting fucked up at Prado. And you're like, okay, cool. I'll come by for 15 minutes, because that's my boy and I gotta say hi. But that's, like that's all the time I
man, man, keep it moving. So,
got. Yeah.
with that being said, the name of your first band.
Name of my first band was The Color. And it was like a dude, this is crazy, Greg. I blew out my knee skateboarding when I was 20 and I had no plan. I went to Santa Monica City College, had no real plans to go to university, but blew out my knee. And my mom's like, "What are you gonna do? Like you're out for a year. You can't do what you love to do." And it was like, "All right, so I'll go to university." Like I'd already got my associate's degree, whatever. Went to school. I was gonna study art. The day that I got there, I met this kid, Dave Kwan. Dave Kwan played guitar so well, and I kind of played guitar. Day one, we started playing and writing music. Um, and I went to university and learned more about rock and roll than I did about anything in the art world. Like we were just playing from day one, and it was called The Color. And funny enough, dude, my first band ever signed to EMI 2006.
Wow.
Yeah, I just thought like, like again, going back, if we could like rewind, I was so disillusioned. I just thought life was easy and everything was just given to you. You know what I mean? It wasn't till like that fell apart and the relationships fell apart and that my then girlfriend left me. It was just like life up to that point was so I was like, oh, getting signed to a major late, I had no money my whole life and then all of a sudden I had $19,000 in my bank account from a signing bonus. I was like, let's go. Bought a Honda Civic, like just thought life was so easy, thought I was special, had to have the whole thing just fall apart so tragically, so like incredibly large way of just falling apart that until I realized like, oh, I was just we were just real lucky. I mean, there was like some good stuff.
Hey,
Like, yeah,
you were really, but you know what though? Um, it might be, I take adversity, there's so many perspectives when it comes to adversity, but I take adversity whenever there's a problem or something happens, even if it was the reaction of what someone else did, I always take the opportunity to look within, and I kind of have like a teachable moment. I say, uh, and I, my business partner, one of my best friends, we disagree with this, we go back and forth on it or whatever. But during COVID, I did some life coaching. And one of the valuable things I got from that, my life coach was like, whenever you have a situation, whenever you have an unfavorable situation, you should always pull some value from it. And the value that I take is kind of like, okay, even if somebody did something to me, what did I do to get in this place? Like how did almost like it used to be kind of like a cliche sitcom bit or sketch, as well as they have movies, and then they'll show somebody just upside down, and then someone will narrate it and say, okay, so how did you get here? You know what I'm saying? So with me, I look at like, okay, even if somebody jerked me, what did I do to give them the impression that they felt comfortable enough to, you know, to whatever. And so, with that being said, I just really try to learn and just not make the same mistakes. Like, if you make, or I won't say mistakes, I'll say I try not to have the same unfavorable things happen,
yeah,
to me. I just, and I, it's not that I like unfavorable things to happen to me, but I love the thrill of victory as much as I love the agony of defeat. Like, call me a weirdo.
no, no, I do. I get it. And another thing, I just think that I think that wisdom comes with age. Like when the color when everything was happening, I just thought life was so easy, but my prefrontal cortex wasn't even developed. I didn't know how to, I mean, I played sports growing up, but I didn't really know how to lose. Do you know what I mean? I never was taught how to lose, how to like take an L and be like, it's cool, like I'm resilient. You know what I mean? So it's like when everything fell apart, pre 25, I was just a head case, you know what I mean? Start drinking too much, drugs, whatever it was, because I never learned how to really lose something that mattered to me. And like losing with like grace and dignity only comes like I think from losing a lot. You know what I mean? Being like, all right, I'm resilient enough, like, okay, what am I not going to do again? And it's funny, that's like something I started playing chess a lot and I would get real pissed when like I'm keeping track of my score, my number, like and I get real pissed when I lose because and I'm like, no, it's okay, learn how to lose. Like, smile, you get them next time. But learning how to lose is like was a big part of has been a big part of my musical journey. Like I just expect things not to go my way all the time, and that way I sort of keep a level head when they don't, and I can sort of reimagine the situation.
Yeah, we got a little chat going, so I want to give a shout out to Greenwood District Studios. You know what I'm saying? We don't have too many riders, but we got a couple riders out there that
Oh yeah.
always show us some love. So I was in the studio. I had the opportunity to be in the studio with you recently, and while I was sitting there watching the musicians do the magical things that musicians do, and engineers and all that kind of stuff, not foreign to it, but every musician is different, every engineer is different, every studio is different. And while I was in the studio, one of the things that just kept looping in my mind, I was like, this is a hybrid of a digital and an analog studio. So that thought right there brings me to the question, for you, digital versus analog.
I, yeah, it's I'm born and raised on analog music, and I like the depth and warmth of analog music. I like the workflow of a digital world, fast editing, you know what I mean?
Folders.
Yes, sessions last half the time, no tape splicing, you know what I mean? But I love the warm sound. But digital world has gotten so good. It's like we can do the things that matter to tape, drums and bass straight to tape, have that nice big warm feel and dump it in the computer and then be able to make edits. So
Yeah.
I don't have an answer because I truly feel these days it's both. Like, I feel like really good people can get great sounds all digitally, and really talented musicians can get, one take or two takes and splice it in half. Um, but there's no real right answer anymore, I don't think. But for myself personally, that's how I do it. We do the important stuff straight to tape and then dump it in the computer so we can make edits. So we get the sound, then we get the efficiency of a computer.
So one of my closest friends is a working musician, and he's kind of like exposed me to different studio scenarios, different things involved in that. And um it's interesting because uh I brought somebody to him that I felt he could have a working relationship with. And the person that I brought, um, before I brought him into my friend's space, there was kind of a conversation we had. Like, okay, this is gonna be about you guys making music. You guys will work together. Let's just see what we can make happen, what we can do. So I bring this guy to my friend's studio, and he just goes in the opposite direction, almost like a dog in a gate. And the dog is kind of comfortable being in the yard, but it sees that gate cracked a little, and he just took off. And I'm sitting there with my mouth hanging, and I'm just looking at this whole thing go the direction it was going. And one of the things that this guy, which goes to point, he was like, well, if I do something, it has to be analog. It just has to be analog. I don't want anything digital. And he's just jumping on his analog thing. And I don't feel that he was just a rider of analog, and anything digital sucked to him. And I was just kind of like, which that wasn't the largest part of me just kind of tripping out. But on the other hand, I'm just like, man, I brought you into this guy's space so you can make music. Like, okay, at least work together and then see what could come of the scenario. But like he just, and then he went off on some whole other stuff too, where it just totally just ruined the scenario of them two working together at that moment. You know what I'm saying? And I think back to a conversation I had with Danger Mouse, and that was even me being somewhat young into the experience of being around, seasoned musicians and all this, that, and the other. And Danger Mouse was like, "Man, I did the whole Demon Days album on a computer." On my laptop. And now he did have players and all that kind of stuff come in after the fact, and he dealt with players. But as far as structuring it and everything, he's like, man, I work on my laptop. And I was just like, damn. And then, thinking of Danger Mouse and the Danger Doom record, as well as the Gnarls Barkley project, I'm just like, as far as people talking about, you know, analog and digital, like he was kind of, I won't say he was ahead of his time, but he understood the marriage of analog and digital and kind of like how to make those work.
Yeah. There's like 2 points that just pop right up in that conversation. And one, this is not to dog anybody, but how you record, like if you don't have the song, it doesn't matter how you record it. Because if you got the song, you can be Danger Mouse, or you could be even one step further, Steve Lacy on his phone. The whole first Steve Lacy record is recorded on a phone, and it's fire. You know what I mean? Like, so it really is like song is first. Like you can't be putting the cart before the horse.
The
Like you,
semantics we get, and in my world of things that I do, I'm glad we're having this conversation. So, a teachable moment I'm gonna take from this conversation we're having with each other is don't get caught up in the semantics, man.
because it doesn't matter. Yeah, you got to put first things first. You know what I mean? Like because you could if you got the right song, it doesn't matter how you record it, man. But if you got the right song and the right way to record it, then you got something pretty special. But like, I don't listen to the Steve Lacy record and go like, "Oh, sounds like shit." I listen to it and go, "Damn, these songs jam." Like,
Yeah.
and he did it for $0. That's insane. You know?
Yeah, and I want to thank you for the opportunity. We came down and getting into the studio session with you, and it was so much more than I expected. And I'll say the song was great. I hadn't really heard it too much because I try not to be in I try not to be involved in that part because I'm gonna be biased probably regardless or whatever. But the vocalist that you brought into the session, like she was no joke, man. Like she was,
Yeah. Let's give a shout out to Claudia Bina right now because she is the real deal, man.
oh man, like I've never seen a vocalist build something. You know what? I'll just say this and we're gonna move on. Like you said, if you don't have the song, it doesn't matter what you have. And song meaning the production, the MC, the musicians, as well as the vocalists. Like if you don't have those things, it don't matter what you got.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it won't. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I couldn't agree. I've had this, so it's only a matter of time before the world knows who Claudia is. And to be completely honest, I think she just needs songs, her own songs, and uh, if that's me helping, I'd be glad to. If not, but it's like I prior to Claudia, I was using Aaron Allen Kane a lot as a backup vocalist. Aaron Allen Kane won 3 Grammys for Killer Mike's record last year. Now I can't afford to use Aaron. You know what I mean? And
Man, you need to call Aaron up and say, "Yo, man, we need to."
she knows she's that same level of talented where it's like,
Mhm.
wow, you deserve to be on the largest platforms there is, and that's Claudia too. And she will be there. I just think she needs
Oh
her.
man, I was totally I'm used to seeing vocalists record live that might not be as comfortable in their own skin,
Right.
as well as like you guys were producing her on the spot. Like she was doing her own thing, but she was like, da da da, and you were like, oh, can you do it this way? Can you do that? And then the process of the way you built the song and the way that she could hang and you like in those scenarios when I've seen vocalists, they're like, well, I really want to do it this way, and like I don't really, and it's all this, and you gave her like the structure, but she did her own thing, and she like I could tell she superseded her expectation also. Like she was in there excited, like, okay.
Man, that's just her demeanor. That's Claudia's demeanor. She's so fun to have on the session or just in the room because I don't know, man. She has a lust for life. And these are the type of people I like to surround myself with, where it's like, this is fun for them, whether there's ever money involved or not. Like, no, like, what are we doing? We're spending our time being productive, like using the gifts that God gave us. Like, and that's it. Like, and she is just such a vibe on every session. I've worked with her probably 15 times now, and it's such a vibe. But you got to come in and see the others too, because like Tatiana Tate played trumpet on that track, and she's the
uh,
same exact way, man. Same exact way. Like it's just it's always just joking around and just light and laughter, and it's like that makes it good. Like, all right, maybe the song doesn't do anything, but man, that was a good day. That was a day well spent.
oh man, I feel like there was some of LA's finest
For
going on in that situation that may get shine, may not get. I just hadn't been exposed to it. You know what I'm saying? And I sat there and I was just kind of like, that was just really refreshing.
You ever seen Standing in the Shadows of Giants?
No.
It's like the documentary about everybody behind the stars, basically. Like they go through all the backup singers and all the studio players and stuff, for like the recording that record on all these great tracks, and it's like they never really get the shine they deserve. And that's like I feel like that's some of these people that I'm lucky enough to get to play with. But I want to also be confident but not cocky. It's like, okay, I'll bring these things and they go like, "Psh, bet, let's go. And that feels good. But yeah, that group it's a special group, and it's fun to record that way. I mean, that's the only things that were overdubbed was Claudia, and Brown. Everything else is live, like, which is so cool.
And speaking on that note, I want to give a shout out to Zephyr and Chanette. And then once again, Greenwood District Studios for hanging in there. They're in the chat, you know what I'm saying, keeping it spiced up a little bit.
Yeah,
And that's pretty tight. So for me, I'm a real creature of habit. I would listen to this Brazilian house music station called audiogrooves.net, and that's kind of how I would consume a lot of music during the day. I played at the warehouse. I just like upbeat, deep, deep house, jazz, soul, just like that kind of thing. And I'll search DJs on YouTube, kind of climb down little rabbit holes or whatever. For
sure.
you, um, working musician, producer, writer, what's your favorite medium to consume music?
Um, it's changed over time. I feel like I've been blessed enough to now know so many good musicians. that the way that I'm introduced to things is word of mouth. And it's always been that way. Like as a younger kid, it was always skateboard videos. Like I got introduced to everything from the Misfits and Bad Brains to the Pharcyde and De La Soul through skateboarding. That was how I consumed it, was skateboard videos. It was like someone was curating their skateboarding to this great music. And that's how I found music. As I got older, I met more musicians, and it's like, you could love one song by this artist, but it's like, did you hear this album that's 15 years old that nobody heard? So I think it's been word of mouth. And then my favorite way to consume it, I'm still old school, headphones and a walk or late night drives. Two of my favorite things in the entire world to do is just listen and completely digest something that's like, a record that is good. You listen, if it's that good, you listen to it 10 times in a row, driving to San Francisco from LA, like, and just completely devour it. But otherwise, I'm a walker, so I'll write, like I still study guitar at school. So I'll do my schoolwork in the morning, and then to clear my mind, go for a walk. And it's like a lot of times I listen to jazz or stuff without lyrics or stuff that I don't compete with. Which is a lot of hip hop because like I'm not a rapper, so it's like I'll listen to a lot of things that like will get me inspired, get me pumped up, something that feels vibey, and just take a walk around the block and clear my head.
So I'm gonna be that 5-year-old child right now, and I'm gonna ask you the same question, but I'm gonna ask you a different way.
Okay.
So if someone's not as cool as you, not an established musician,
Right.
doesn't have cool friends that are musicians and all that,
Yep.
let's take all that away from you. When you don't have your friends, when you don't have the word of mouth and all of this, where do you go to look for some music?
So now it wasn't like when we were young. I would personally go somewhere that I knew that I liked, and I
Mm-hmm.
would play Spotify radio.
Okay. All right. All right.
They employ I think relatively decent people to curate those playlists, and something will pop up and be like, "What's this?" I still do it to this day. You
Interesting.
know, like I'll just be at work and I'll listen to Freddie Hubbard radio, and I'll hear something that's like, "Whoa, whoa, what was that change?" I don't, and then all of a sudden I'm on, like Jared Allen. I just somewhere super far down. Like, how did I get here? And it was because of their Spotify playlists. I think they do a really good job. I don't think they pay their artists enough. We all know that, but they do bring a lot of music to people.
All right. So I'm gonna let my younger new homeboy steer me in a direction.
All right.
I can honestly say, um, I usually work like 8-hour days, minimal, and I'm playing music. And I can honestly say, uh, been at the same location for over 10 years. Um, I've never listened to a day of Spotify music. I've never listened to an hour of Spotify music. I've never listened to 30 minutes of Spotify music. I've never done it. I guess I'm a creature of habit. I'm old school. Maybe they're the evolution of what SoundCloud was once upon a time with more of a mix of things and whatnot. But your conversation has me curious and I'm gonna check out.
Yeah, man. I truly think it's worth it. Again, I think there's like gaping holes in Spotify's artist relations. I think that I truly they don't pay people right. I know that there's a huge problem and that people are really working on that. But as like just a listener and a consumer,
Mm-hmm.
their playlist, there's one for everything, man. You're gonna go for a run in the morning, like you could put on the run and you'd be like, all right, I feel pretty good, like, and then the next song you're like, all right, it truly has introduced me to things that I never would have known before in all
I'm,
in
I'm,
all categories, jazz, rock, hip, everything.
well, I'm gonna switch it up because the music I listen to usually makes me want to run for a carne asada, something or another in the morning, and not run for something to get me right. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
gonna we're gonna we're gonna hook that up. So moving on, your favorite hip hop movie?
Favorite hip hop movie. I don't know if it counts But the short film, Jim Jarmusch's short film Coffee and Cigarettes with RZA, Jizza, and Bill Murray in the coffee shop. Have you ever seen this?
I've seen clips of it. I've seen like a short, like a clip of it, but I haven't seen the movie.
It's funny, man. They play themselves, but Bill Murray's like like a waiter at a coffee shop. It's super funny and weird and outlandish. And again, I don't know if it counts, but that'd be my go. That's the first thing I think of when I think of hip hop movies. And I mean, after that, I just go to Juice or, uh, I mean, Dave Chappelle's Block Party.
Okay. So um I'm gonna drop a little something on you.
Okay.
Not music related, but you said that you skated.
Hmm.
Um I went to high school with Jeremy Klein,
Oh, cool.
and
He's a menace. That boy's a
he
menace.
was he was like a misfit in every way. Like he was
Yeah.
that's kind of why we how we actually
Still to this day, he's still a menace.
at the time that I skated with him at the time he skated, but this was before he dropped off of this and jumped into that. And it
Right.
was interesting. It had to be about like 96, 97, and I don't know how I ran across it. And I saw that he had, he was cool with Birdhouse and Tony Hawk and all those guys. And
Yeah.
he's jumping off of diesel trucks in Japan and stuff
Yeah.
like it. I'm just like, man, this is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, he's skateboarding introduced me to everything cool, man. It introduced me to my lifelong friends. So I have a studio in El Monte, and my partner in that studio is an old pro skateboarder, Danny Garcia, who goes by Reverend Baron. He makes incredible music. He's an incredible producer. Skate videos introduced me to every bit of music I like. I mean, if you could take it, you could say like John Coltrane, and instantly I would think of A Love Supreme, the skateboard movie that Thomas Campbell did for Supreme, and I can hear John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, the entire album in my head set to skateboarding. Like you can like stereo skateboards, taking all the Blue Note art and putting it on skateboards. It's like skateboarding like was my conduit for music, man. It was how I got in. It was how I fell in love. It was how I knew I wanted to be a musician. Like, um, and man, still to this day, like kids I grew up skating with, I still talk to on the regular. Skateboarding was real important to me. I mean, still is. I'm just my knees hurt. You know?
So, um, so since you grew up in LA, right? Okay. I know you're from, but sometimes people bounce away, they bounce up, whatever. So
Yeah.
you had junior high school. So what was the soundtrack to your seventh grade year in junior high school? What music were you listening to?
So seventh grade, I was already into skateboarding. So there was a video magazine. This is pre-YouTube. So there was a video magazine called 411, and it came out so every 2 months there was one, and it was about an hour long, and it had a bunch of different segments, and really it was like whatever I was feeling off of that. And again, that video is where the first time I heard Gangstar. It was the first time I heard the Alcoholics. It was the first time I heard Bad Brains. First time I heard the Misfits. First time I heard Iron Maiden. Um, and it was basically anything that was on 401 I was listening to because I thought it would make me skate better. But things that stuck with me are still the same things today, which is
Okay.
really wild. I mean, Living Legends introduced me to Living Legends, which was so underground at that point. It was like you couldn't even find tapes unless members of Living Legends sold it to Amoeba. Like walked in with a backpack, like, could he put some of my tapes on the shelf? And we would like, yeah. So seventh grade was anything that was coming out of 401. Um, and I distinctly remember everybody listening to like Green Day and Offspring. And I think I was like I don't want to say ahead, but it felt like I was on to more like less commercially artistic music at that point. And I don't know if that makes me sound crazy, but yeah, I felt like, that's for them. That's not for me.
Okay, so now I'm gonna high five the elephant in the room.
All right.
Your thoughts on AI?
Oh man. I I know I still don't think there's a right answer because yeah, I think that it's a tool, and when used correctly, and I don't know how to use it correctly yet, but when used correctly, I think it could be largely beneficial to people. It'll never give you a point of view, like you have to, it's, if you're a comedian and you want it to write you a joke, it'll never be able to tell a joke from your point of view. It'll never be able to write a song from your point of view or your voice or how you want to express it, but it can help. If you're like, oh, I got like three-quarters of this down and I need some help, maybe like what do they think? They'll give you some options maybe. So I'm not against it, but I'm not for it. I'm just it's sort of in the middle right now.
I have a three-letter word for you.
Okay.
Yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Do
Whenever
you feel like
when,
you got, go ahead.
whenever I hear somebody say or talk about AI, I always think back because I'm just like a huge, and this is gonna sound weird. I'm not a comic book guy,
Hmm.
but I love the way, but because I'm not a comic book guy, I can embrace the way that Marvel and DC have come to the cinematic world because that's all I know. Like I know that some of these uh superheroes and whatnot existed in this storyline that people that are so pure to it, when they hear of the cinematic adaptations, they get so passionate and and they can't whatever. I don't know that. So there was a an Avengers where they had this Age of Ultron. That's what it was. And they had this robot that basically he might have come from Tony Stark's uh, laboratory or something, but he was learning like how humans think and like really fast. Like he was learning it. And when I hear of AI, that's what I think of. And um I look at the the word I'm looking for. The word I cannot. The word loses me. The predictive. I look at the predictive typing when you text, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
like, man, it does that because it's learning you. Like something is in your phone to learn the way that you think, to learn the way, like to end your sentences and stuff like that. And that's just where we're at. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? But I just feel that right now AI doesn't have soul. Like
Yeah.
it has stuff, but it doesn't have but I feel that the more people record on their phones, video, audio, interact on their phones, I feel like, and I'm not like, it's not like I watched Age of Ultron and I'm sitting here and I'm just conspiracy theorizing just the whole thing. But I just feel like all of that is teaching this thing like what our behaviors are and how we do what we do. And so there will come a time where it's going to be pretty close, man. It's but this is the fail safe to it. I think I have enough faith, and faith is a tricky thing because faith is kind of faith is leaning in the direction of hope and how things should be maybe in a perfect world or whatever. But I would hope that the consumer um, maintains a level of integrity, but consumers don't have it. Like they just want what's hot. So that's the
And the one thing I will say is that, I mean, at least as far as I can see, they'll never be able, live music is the one thing they'll never be able to take away from you. It's the one art form that maybe like painting and stuff, but it's the one art form people are always going to want to see live music and feel like human to human connection. And so even if AI took over, like say recording or like the pop waves or whatever, like people are still going to need festivals and people are still going to need live shows, you know? So I have faith in that. I'm like, all right, well,
So I got a buddy, um, business manager, worked for like this huge firm, like super huge firm. And I remember taking an artist to him, and the artist was very unpolished, but he had the it, but he was just unpolished. But
yeah,
he had the it factor to an extent, to an extent, but unpolished. But he had whatever he had it enough to where it was getting attention and traction and all this kind of thing. And my buddy said something to me, and even me being around the music industry since like 91, he said something to me that blew my mind and gave me a whole different perspective on a lot of things. So my buddy who's the businessman, he's like, well, yo, we can get him a meeting with these people. We can get him a meeting with those people and da 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 da. And I'm like, well, man, he's not. I'm like, he's not ready, man. Like, you can't hear, like, and see whatever. But but the artist had enough of the it though. But I was just kind of, scared. Like, man, we get him in front of these, super huge people, man. If they hear the flaws that I can hear and the imperfection, we're gonna scare the fish away. And my
right.
dude was like, dude, if he got the it factor, there are people that they will put on him and they will get they'll it's like having it's like going to, let's say, Dominican Republic and getting a baseball player that can pitch, but he can't do nothing else, like nothing else. They'll throw somebody on him to develop the technique of swinging a bat and like all these other things and whatever. And when he said that to me, it hadn't clicked, but I immediately thought of like pop artists. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
these K-pop, and I'm like, oh, they did the Pussycat Girls. They did get a bunch of girls and put them together that looked half decent, and then uh, they probably had to dance all day long and had to do vocal lessons all day long and like do all these things for whatever. So I say that to say, with this AI stuff, I believe that I believe that they will get people who can do it good enough, man.
Yeah.
To yeah, it's just
Oh, just perform like AI songs or whatever.
yeah.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I don't, yeah, you're not wrong. It still doesn't like off put me to
Nah, they're not
it.
gonna be able to go in the studio and it's put this way. I say we got a good 10 to 15 years before AI can do what happened in that studio.
Yeah. That's a trip to think. It hurts my brain to think about because I think, like part of me is insecure about it because I'm so in love with just the art of making music. Um, that anytime like someone's coming for your job or whatever, like I say that loosely. But you're like, oh, what? Like that's crazy. Like it half poses an insecurity to me, but maybe hopefully by that time I'm like, you know,
I'll
real.
give you some. I'll give you something mind blowing. So, it was about 2003, and I went to this music convention in Cannes, um, of France, called Midem,
Hmm.
and it was basically a music convention where you had a bunch of people there that wanted to license music. You had a bunch of people coming there to go to these booths to get deals with people that wanted to license music. And I was there to hand deliver an album to this German distributor and record label. And so, um, this there wasn't that many people that weren't involved in the music industry there. And kind of felt very privileged to be there. And you kind of clicked up with different people, and I was just kind of like a fish out of water. I was very green and just learning distribution and just all these things and record labels, and literally record labels were damn near signing checks at their booths. Like
Oh, wow.
it was a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah.
And I ended up, it's so funny how I developed friendships at that convention. So it would basically be people would look lonely, and then they'd be like, hey man, let's have a drink. And I've got some friendships to this day, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying, of cats where we both were just kind of there, overwhelmed by the whole thing. And I met this guy from Canada, and uh the culture of the convention was to have meetings. And so a meeting is basically an executive going to a bar, posting up, and you got 5 minutes to talk to them, and that's the meeting. So that, and they're sitting there having a drink or having some food with their friends or whatever. And you got 5 minutes, like that's a meeting. You got 5 minutes or whatever. So I met this guy from Canada, and he's like, "Yo, man, I got something going on. Let's meet. Let's have a meeting. Let's go, da 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 da." But he wasn't like, I knew he wasn't like super upper level anything or whatever. But man, I was new to the situation. I was going to deliver a record. I think I had delivered the record, but I was there for like maybe 5 days or 6 days or something like that. So I go have a drink with him, and he tells me, "Oh man, the CD is about to be a wrap." I said, "Huh?" He said, "Oh man, the music industry is about to be over, man. MP3s and da 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 da." I felt this thing in my stomach, because I flew to France. Like I wasn't balling in any type of a way, wasn't
Yeah.
nothing. The group I was working with didn't send me out there. Like they didn't pay for the plane ticket, nothing like that. I went out there as a manager, uh, mover and shaker, trying to get some stuff going. And this guy he says there's not going to be, but see what he thought was that there was going to be a new media that was going to come out, and it was going to be kind of like a two-sided DVD, and it would have like music on both sides and whatever. So he didn't have it exactly right, but him telling me that the CD was about to be extinct, oh man, it floored me, man. It floored me. It made me feel like I'm working with musicians. They're studio recording musicians that make records. They go out, they tour the records, they sell the records. That's how they make a living. And there's not going to be any more CDs. And so, like, what's going to happen to the the company? Like, I just like all these things. And after the initial shock of that evening, I think maybe to keep my sanity, I just kind of said, you know what? People just say all kind of crazy shit, man. Who knows if
Yeah, just
you know?
ignore it. Just ignoring it for now.
Yeah, but it came so fast, and it's just kind of like, dang, to see that, like put it this way, back between, let's say, 93 and about 98, they were throwing around $200,000 record deals like it wasn't nothing, man. Like anybody, like it was dudes who had
Oh,
like
I got one. I basically got one of the, I just like got lucky enough to get that handout, made a record, got shelved, like it was crazy. It was just like, money, no big deal. Like it was wild.
Yeah, man, I saw a lot of people get deals, dude. I saw people get production deals. I saw like all kinds of stuff. And there was just so much money being thrown around. It was amazing to me. But um, just like the group Public Enemy, there will never be another Public Enemy. The system will never allow that. The political system, the music industry, all this, there will never be a time where deals $500,000 deals, $1 million deals. There will never be a time when it's just going to be open season like that. Not in our lifetime.
Yeah. And it really did though, it made it made artists resilient. That's why we have Danger Mouses and why we have Steve Lacy's now though, finding a way. It's like that, taking non-traditional routes to get their art heard. That's cool, man. Like that's you gotta have heart to follow through on that, because
Man,
if there's no money involved, you work 8 hours and you're like, I'm too tired to write. It's like, well, then you're not the one.
you know, before I go on to the next question,
Yeah.
you know which artist I'm going to give some props to, and people might not get into the semantics of the artist, but I'm going to give props where props need to be given.
Okay.
Soldier Boy don't get enough credit, man. You gotta separate yourself from the personality. You got to separate yourself from the personality. He was the first dude to like ringtones. Like, dude, and he was a kid, man. He was a kid, and he came in and he shook the whole game up, man.
Yeah.
And and
I
and
agree.
and
I
I'll
agree. I
I'll
agree.
give him credit for understanding intellectual property at such a young age. Like understanding what your thing is at a young age.
Mm,
Yeah, that was just amazing to me. So on to the next one.
yeah.
Your favorite musician.
Oh, this one's so hard. I mean, anybody. This one's so hard for anybody. But it's weird because like I want to say things like Steely Dan or D'Angelo, but go
When you
ahead.
say Steely Dan, there's more than one musician.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. And I want to say like Voodoo, D'Angelo's Voodoo
Yeah.
is probably the most important one of the most top three most important records for me all time. But it's like all the players. I mean, it was his mind and he was producing that feel and those songs, but it wasn't the musician. You know what I mean? It wasn't one musician. So if I had to say one musician to it'd be this guitar player named Blake Mills.
Yeah. So musician meaning one of your friends texts you that this guy's about to go on in 40 minutes. And right now you say, Greg, it has been great.
Gotta go.
It's been great, but I gotta get over to where this is about to go down.
Yeah, it'd be this man called Blake Mills. Also LA, but um just virtuoso on the guitar, great at writing songs, great at accompanying other people. He gets it 360 degrees. He understands how to be a musician. Um, he has solo records out. He has trio records with Pino Palladino out. He, um, produced like so many great records. So yeah, I'd have to say Blake Mills. If you don't know him, check him out. He's fantastic.
All right, now I'm gonna get a little looser on
Yeah,
a variation of the same question.
yeah,
Now we can get to your favorite band,
yeah.
collective of musicians.
And that would be a tie between Asia era Steely Dan and Soulquarians era D'Angelo. Those two groups of people put together some of the greatest music, both technical, both beautiful, like all the things. They just firing on all cylinders. Like the Soulquarians doing like back to back in the same sessions. I guess I've only read the folklore of this, but they'd be working on Voodoo and then bounce over to Studio B and be working on Baduism and then bounce down to Studio C and be working on Belial. Like the stuff that the Soul Aquarians did is just next level. Same.
Name
Go ahead.
Name some of the musicians. Bring us up to speed. Some of the musicians in Soul Aquarius.
Well, I mean, my favorite would be Spanky Alfred because he's the guitar player, and he was he was just like a church guy, and he was older than everybody. Learned gospel in the church, and he basically invented neo soul. I'll stand on that. If anybody wants to come at me, I'll stand on that he invented neo soul. As far as guitar playing is concerned. Let me be clear about that. And then of course Questlove on drums, D'Angelo on piano. I don't they had a mixture of people on the horns, but those three people. Oh,
Okay.
Pino Palladino on bass. Yeah, so Spanky Alfred guitar, Pino Palladino on bass, and Questlove on drums. Those three, that's magic.
The biggest musical thing you've been a part of.
Hmm. Well, working with Brown was pretty cool, man. Pharcyde meant a lot to me. His voice meant a lot to me and still does to this day. And hearing him rhyme on something I worked on was a big deal. But if we're talking resume, I wrote a song in 2013 that ended up on a Counting Crows record and spent like 16 weeks above the top 20 on college radio for the Counting Crows. So that's probably the biggest thing. Um,
Okay.
but I'm not like a huge fan of theirs or nothing, like they're fine. They don't but I don't go listen to it or anything.
All right. Your dream collab.
Okay, so George Benson,
Dang.
George Benson or Postanos, like De La, and I'm just De La Soul to me represents uh the most blue collar of musicianship. It's like they never stopped working hard. They never stopped releasing records. They never stopped releasing good records whether like hip hop was in style or out of style or what, like through every era they made good stuff. And it's like I love De La Soul, but George Benson's one of my biggest guitar influences. So I'm gonna split it down the middle on those. And that's just like off top. I'm sure I could think of a hundred.
Nah, I get it. Um, your most iconic moment.
Most iconic moment. Mm, Off the top of my head, opening for the Killers at Barrowlands in Scotland, sold out Barrowlands in Scotland. I want to say like I don't know how many thousands, but thousands of people, like people as far as I could see, and
Yep.
they felt like it felt like they were loving what I was doing. I'd never felt that energy before. Just thousands of people just screaming and stuff. That was a pretty big moment.
So, from skater with screwed up knees, learning how to play the guitar, learning music, I'm sure music theory and whatnot. And I guess one passion of skating, that passion being uh, the spirit jumping into the guitar and music and all things jazz and soul and all that kind of stuff. If you were to have a biopic, what would be the title?
Ooh. Hmm. Man, that's tough. That's a tough one. Um, I would call it. I just finished a tune, and it's kind of like a catchphrase right now, but I'm gonna call it "Standing on Business," the no-no story. And because the chorus, well, the first verse of the song says, being a man, um, wait, how's it go? It says, um, sometimes being a man is paying dues, not cashing checks. And that's like what I feel like is standing on business. Not like, it's like, all right, man, like I gotta work hard for what little I get. And that to me is like standing on your business.
All
So
right.
That's what I'm gonna go with.
I can take a slice of that. I feel one of my sayings is you got to put 140% in to get about 50 out. You know?
Yep. Yeah, same idea. That's the same concept, same exact
Yeah.
concept. Yeah, man, for sure. So, yeah, that's what I'd go with off top.
And who would play you?
Oh my gosh. You know what? I don't know, some like average white dude. Like
Come on, man.
I don't know, like what do you know what's weird? Sometimes people say that I look like Ryan Reynolds.
That is so funny. That is so funny. I was gonna say Ryan Reynolds could play the older version of you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, right.
So
Yeah.
we'll go with that. People, my homegirl was with me when someone's like, "Does anybody ever tell you you look like Ryan Reynolds?" And she was like, "Oh God, this is gonna go to your head or something like that." And then we joked about it for a half hour. And then later that night, she sent me a text, and it's a picture of Deadpool like with his hood off. You know, it's like burned up Ryan Reynolds,
Oh man.
hard and ugly. So, yeah, that's just yeah. So
Nah, dope. Well, with that being said, you survived it, man.
made it through, man.
Another episode of Splendid Radio on Pharcyde TV. So, where can people find you?
They can find if you just search at no space no, just no on all streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all that stuff. They can find me there, or they can find my Instagram, and that's at the number two space live space Luke, like two live crew, you know, like two live Luke.
Dope, dope. Well, man, thank you for being a guest. Been a great conversation.
Hell yeah.
Uh Hope I didn't drown you. My people are from Mississippi, man. We make some good smoked meat and we could tell a story. That's all.
Hell yeah. No, I appreciate it, man. It's fun. It's fun getting to talk about this stuff, man, and getting to know you better, man. I cherish the experience from the studio the other night to just rapping with you today, man. You're a good dude.
Nah, nice. All right, man. So we'll catch up again once the song comes out.